Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining in. Let's kick off the webinar. My name is Anand. I am a co-founder and head of engineering at Echelon, and alongside Ken, who's a certified master architect and head of delivery at Echelon, we're going to be talking about how we see enterprises running ServiceNow with AI. So, as a quick introduction to Echelon and what we do, Echelon is an AI workforce that all of these enterprises listed here use to build, operate, and modernize their ServiceNow instances in production today. What that means is everyone from an analyst to a developer to an architect to a platform owner, everyone can operate, build, and modernize their ServiceNow instance. I'll give a couple more examples of how we operate, and we will jump into a demo where Ken will show you how enterprises work with AI. So there are two ways in which we surface up today. Example A is we can surface up as your AI teammate, and actually help you build and accelerate your development on your ServiceNow instance. On the right, we also surface up as an MSP. So for instance, if your team has a bunch of developers on the staff, we can surface up as an AI teammate and help accelerate your output. Whereas on the right, if you traditionally work with partners in either fulfilling a project or helping you accelerate certain aspects of your ServiceNow delivery, we can help do that as well. We do this in a few ways. So we sit outside of ServiceNow and can connect into one or multiple instances. So we are instance aware by default. We apply ServiceNow best practices and the best practices that our delivery team has learned by 15 years of delivery experience in ServiceNow. That gets applied by default on every build. Everything is documented by default, so you don't need to think about documentation as an afterthought. And the last one is we are the most of the enterprises that work with us, are able to continuously build, repair, troubleshoot with the help of Echelon. Wanted to give three examples of how we work with customers today, just as a quick introduction of the various ways in which we could have. United Healthcare, we work with the Optum team of United Healthcare, and essentially we help them re-platform from a 14-year-old customized CSM instance to back to out of the box. So they had a 14-year-old instance, and they had a bunch of legacy tech debt on that instance, and we helped them actually move from that to out of the box CSM application. So think 17 or 18 custom applications, all of which had a lot of burden in upgrades and in every sort of change that was being made. Echelon helped them accelerate that to back out of the box. With HubSpot, we helped the team increase their throughput or output. So we unlocked 4,000 hours of development on their platform. What that means is all of their catalog development, all of their flow development, all of their CMDB troubleshooting happened through Echelon, and we were able to increase the throughput of every developer on their platform by 5x. With A6, we surface up as a managed service provider. So we are helping them with 3 projects today, modernizing about 300 old catalog items for their new UX. We're helping them build new SecOps integrations and help them build custom applications. all without any of their team sort of helping build. Echelon helps build that those features. So hopefully, with this, you've seen a really quick example of how Echelon works and helps. But I think it is really important and impressive if we can see the demo. So I'd hand this over to Ken, who's our delivery architect, to give us a demo of how Echelon works. Over to you, Ken.
Thanks, Anand. Just sharing my screen. All right. Can everyone see my screen today?
Yep.
Great. And I believe you guys have chat enabled, right? So I love to make these sessions as engaging as possible. I know it's a webinar. I have something to demo, but if there's something that you guys came in here today to see something very specific, I'd love to hear it in the chat. Um, I know the topic of running AI agents on ServiceNow is very broad. So what is a pain point that your platform or your team is having today? Is it maybe they're having trouble with getting requirements from the business in a timely manner and then having it go sit into the backlog? Or maybe your problem is you have a story that came into the backlog, but it's taking 2 weeks or even longer to just get a simple catalog item enhancement updated. Or maybe you're going through a much larger sort of transformation journey, right? Maybe you're going through a migration from Remedy into ServiceNow. You want to do a whole big CMDB cleanup. So those are, I'm just dropping some examples. I'd love to kind of hear it from you guys or read it from you guys. These are all things that Echelon is able to help you out with, right? Writing stories, getting requirements, fleshing out a big idea, and being able to break it down into chunks. So maybe give 2 minutes for you guys to kind of type in your thoughts. If not, I'll kind of go through a simple example of Echelon building something within minutes, which usually would take a developer days or weeks. While you guys are thinking that through and typing away, I'm going to maybe start off with an introduction with Echelon, right? For some of you guys, that might be the first time. So what you're looking at right now is the Echelon homepage. It sits completely outside of your ServiceNow infrastructure, and we connect to your instances via a simple service account via OAuth or REST, right? So nothing gets installed into your ServiceNow instance. No Now Assist licenses required. We handle all of the infrastructure, and this is the portal that your team logs into in order to use Echelon. Now we see Echelon over here being able to connect to two different instances, right? And so this is a very important feature because most of the time Echelon is going to be connected to your development instance. But we actually have a lot of customers that connect Echelon into the production instance in a read-only mode. And that's very handy because we see a lot of bugs, issues that happen in production, right? Maybe you need to do some CMDB cleanup. Maybe you want to ask Echelon how to debug why an approval didn't get sent out to the right person, right? So Echelon can connect to those production instances, do the troubleshooting, and then implement the fix in your development instance, right? So just diving right in, right? Echelon over here at the bottom, we can start typing in our user requirements. But I'll also share with you all the different ways that we can get Echelon started and working with us. So the example that I'm going to use, and I'm actually going to drag an attachment over here. And I'm going to tell Echelon this. Here's a SharePoint form that we'd love to migrate into ServiceNow. Help me plan a solution for this that aligns with the existing architecture of my instance. So you see me, I just kind of spoke to Echelon exactly what I needed and wanted it to do. I'm not doing any sort of crazy prompt engineering, right? I'm speaking to it as exactly if I was maybe a citizen dev, right? A business analyst, or maybe, for me, I'm an architect. So I'm telling Echelon kind of what I want, right? But I'm not getting too specific into the details here. This is very important, right? Because I think a lot of customers ask us, hey, what state of my stories need to be in? What sort of template do I need to give Echelon my stories to give my requirements? You can see here the attachment that I provided It's a very generic form that asks about a contractor badge and long-term parking visitor badge request form, right? Something that's buried in some legacy tool, and we want to now recreate this within ServiceNow. And what I'm going to be showing you in this single example is Echelon working through 3 different phases, right? The first phase that you're looking at right now, it's the discover phase, right? So just like your favorite architect, your favorite engineer, when you give them a requirement, they're going to immediately start doing some discovery within your instance, current state analysis. So we see here Echelon looking up, hey, existing catalog items that might align or be similar to this, trying to figure out where might be the best category, trying to see if there's any existing flows that match my requirements so I can reuse things. Right. So just like your favorite architect would, they're going to do some current state analysis, understand what's in your instance, customizations, custom tables that you might have, anything that it can use to reuse as part of the solution, right? Rather than just trying to take your requirement and then just blindly creating something brand new. So you can see here in the time that I've been talking, right, less than 2 minutes, Echelon's already looked at 96 different records. It's looked through a whole bunch of different catalog items, looked at one particular flow and understood kind of like how we are currently building flows and catalog items within this instance. And then it's going to be able to repeat those design standards. I'm showing you an example of a catalog right now, but Echelon's actually capable of a whole lot more. And I'll quickly flash this capabilities page just to kind of spark some ideas of maybe these are some things that you or your team is having trouble with today. On the left-hand side, we see all of, I would say 90% of ServiceNow's capabilities, things as advanced as workspaces, playbooks, service portals. These are things that often require a very senior resource to do and takes a lot of time. We've recently also added platform analytics and dashboards for, I'm sure some of you, or maybe all of you have already upgraded to Australia, right? We know that the old ways of doing reports and dashboards are over, and a lot of teams are struggling to catch up to learn how to use platform analytics and dashboard. Echelon's able to help you out with that. And on the right-hand side, on the application side of things, these are, I would say, ServiceNow is an ever-expanding, ever-evolving platform, right? So we're always on top of it, right? So I would say for 80% of customers who have ITSM, HRSD, CSM, Echelon's got it covered, trained by our CTAs, in-house CTAs and CMAs that have been through years and years of implementations to train on these things. And then, of course, we know that, again, the platform's always expanding. So we're always adding new skills into Echelon's repository of skills. Yeah. Is there anything here that you guys on joined on the call today that you're working on that you don't see here? Or maybe you want to learn a little bit more of? Be shy. All right. I guess you guys
Ken,
take it as you love my voice. Oh,
we have a question, Ken. Do we
yes.
support custom applications?
Thank you. Yes, we absolutely. Yeah, we're helping a customer right now, help them to migrate from an existing Excel-based, email-based process into creating custom applications within ServiceNow using Echelon. We actually gave it all the Excel sheets, screenshots, swim lane diagrams. I can actually maybe show you an example if we have time. And then Echelon's able to create the custom scoped app, the tables, the flows, the forms that the users would use, dashboards, so kind of the whole gamut. Yeah. All right, so I'll kind of go back to our first example of building out that catalog item, right? So within less than 3 minutes, which is the time it takes me just to read through the requirements, it looks like we Echelon found some things within the instance that we're able to reuse, right? Some existing catalog items. And so over here for today, I actually want Echelon to let's build this item, right? So, and if I look in this discovery document. We see Echelon doing a very comprehensive discovery within our instance. Okay? Calls out some things, right? For today, I actually want to just proceed in creating something brand new, just to kind of show you guys the whole entire process. So that was a good call out because oftentimes when we get new requirements, it takes a lot of time for your architects, for your developers, for your business analysts to look into the instance and see like, hey, do we have a catalog item that exists already? Is there a variable set that we can reuse? Is there a script include that we could reuse? So we can see there that within 3 minutes time, Echelon was able to find something that existed on the instance and call it out to us. Yeah.
We have another question, which is, do we help configure Now Assist Virtual Agent?
Yeah, so the new flavor of virtual agent with Now Assist, yeah, that's something that we have customers using today, getting Echelon to help them configure Now Assist skills to be used within their virtual agent. Yeah. Nice. I see a great question there. So the question was, you have a very customized instance and development guides. How does Echelon adapt to that? So I showed you many different ways, right? Because it's a very complex problem. Even when you hire a new contractor, a new partner to work with you, or maybe a new developer to work on your team, they have the exact same problem. Hey, I know ServiceNow, but how do I get a better understanding of this instance of ServiceNow, right? Some of our customers have been on the platform for over 10 years. So number one, which I showed you already, was Echelon doing a very comprehensive discovery of your instance before it even recommends a solution, right? It wants to see what are some things that has been built before giving you a design, right? And that takes care of a large majority of those use cases. It's able to see custom fields, custom tables, custom script includes, and then incorporate that into the design. The other way that Echelon can be tailored to be a better fit for your organization is we have something called memory or instance customers best practices. So in here, right, we understand, having worked with many customers for many, many years, every single instance is different, right? You might have a very specific way of naming your update sets. You might have a very specific way in creating your notifications. Maybe IT likes to have their notifications look like one way. Maybe HR likes to have their notifications look like another, right? And maybe you have something that's very complex, like, hey, for service catalog approvals, we use this custom table that we built, or we use this decision table to drive a lot of our approvals, right? And that's not out of the box. So that's something, examples of that, your development design standards, those are all things that you can add into Echelon. And the next time you ask Echelon that exact same question pertaining to that solution, it'll know how to tailor the solution based on what you provided it here. Yeah. So going back to our catalog item example, and I see a lot of action and chat happening, which is great to see. Thanks guys for helping me field those. Yeah, let's move on to the design, right? So remember, I spoke about three phases. Echelon did the discovery. Echelon's now moving on to the design. And so this is how we ensure that the human, which is me in this case, is always in the loop. I didn't just give Echelon a requirement and it randomly built something into my instance, right? Echelon here is proposing a design, one catalog item living under a specific category, right? The catalog item has this metadata, even down to the sys ID. The catalog item, based on my initial screenshot that I gave it, it's going to have these field types or these variables down to, hey, knowing that if I'm asking for a contractor name, knowing that contractors don't normally sit within our sys user table because they're an external contract, this should be a single line text. Knowing something as sponsoring manager, hey, that's referring to someone internal to the organization. That should actually go to sys user. And so we see Echelon spent 5 minutes of planning to give us this design spec sheet, right? We saw the catalog item. Echelon picked up that, hey, there's actually some UI logic that needs to happen in this chat. So let me propose a solution for the setting up a UI policy, right? And we see the same thing for the flow, right? So the flow, based on my requirements, I called out that, hey, I needed to have a supervisor approval, and I also needed to have a conditional approval. So we see Echelon, again, proposing this design for the flow before I actually push it into the instance. Okay. And so at this point, right, Echelon's asking for that approval. Does this design look right? Should I proceed with the build? Right? If there was a change I wanted to make, hey, maybe I actually don't want to ask for have this form be used for parking approvals. Let's get rid of those fields. Let's get rid of that flow logic. I can type that in here. And so we're able to, again, having that human in the loop, I can change the solution. So ultimately, Echelon's building exactly what it is that I want. In this case, let's kind of just go ahead. Let's proceed as design. We can continue. And in just a few minutes, we're going to see Echelon complete the build out of that catalog item form and that flow.
Ken, does Echelon take into account the ServiceNow best practices?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So Echelon is connected to ServiceNow's product docs, right? It's also, that's one way of how Echelon is grounded in truth. We know that Echelon's connected into your instance, so it sees everything within your instance, but it's also trained by all of our CTAs and CMAs that work in-house, right? We have specialists that focuses on CMDB. We have experts who are focused on software asset management. And so each of those folks on our team train and validate Echelon and make sure it kind of run through its paces before it ever gets into the hands of customers. And that makes sure that Echelon's always respecting current best practices, documented as well as undocumented, because this is stuff that we've seen in the field. Yeah, so while we're waiting Echelon to kind of complete this catalog item, I'd like to show you some other things. There's a lot that Echelon can do, and today is about running your ServiceNow platform with AI, right? So one of it is in this example that we saw today, we took a very high level idea, very poor requirements, right? A screenshot that's a little blurry, and we're on its way to building out a catalog item, right? So we see how Echelon is capable of taking requirements and building something in literally probably less than 30 minutes, right? I'll show you some other examples where perhaps we have a lot of customers that have lots of technical integrations sprawl, so integration sprawl. And the need to document them is very important, right? To keep a catalog of what systems you have talking to ServiceNow, what systems you have sending information into ServiceNow, right? So here is an example where I was able to quickly ask Echelon, hey, give me actually a repository of all the integrations that I have. Right? Echelon, then you can see, did its discovery thing, looked at 200 records in 5 minutes, a lot quicker than I can, and came back to us with 100 integrations that we have installed on the instance. Yeah, we've been going a little crazy on this one. And then what I actually asked it to do here, you'll notice I used a slash command over here, right? So we have these slash commands, which are basically shortcuts, right? For those familiar with Gemini gems or Claude skills, right? It allows you to take very large set of instructions. These are things that maybe your team is doing every single day on a very weekly basis, analyzing update sets, migrating workflows to flows. In this case, we're asking it to generate a technical design document within a couple minutes time. I selected, hey, help me document my Azure AD user management. And within a few minutes time, Echelon was able to help me create a technical design document for this, right? That follows the template of that my company uses. So what you guys just saw was rather than asking an architect, a developer, an integration specialist to document this integration to be used for our operations team, for our level 1 support desk, right? To keep a good catalog of the integrations that we have. They probably would have to spend half a day in just learning, figuring out the integration, probably another couple days to get it documented, right? Complete with diagrams, structure, right? Knowing what sort of stuff was installed, what sort of integrations this intersects with, etc. Right? So very quickly, we were able to get documentation done. And I tell a lot of my customers, documentation is pretty much free and instant now because we have something like Echelon. Another one that we did for our customers was they wanted to get a maturity assessment for their knowledge management, right? So this customer was very, one of their priorities was improving their knowledge management process, which goes beyond just making sure that, hey, we don't have too many technical debt within the instance. It's talking about the process maturity. Again, we have another slash command here. Hey, analyze my process knowledge management. Within, I'd say 16 minutes time, we see Echelon being able to generate this report for us. A quick overview of the current state of our knowledge management process. An executive summary, right? Looks like we have a large majority of articles that haven't been published in over a year. A lot of these articles are past their scheduled review date, right? So maybe I got some teams I need to follow up on to make sure that they're following up on their knowledge articles. We also have things that are a little bit more technical, right? We have a knowledge base search source, something that your end users would use when they log into the portal. That it's not active on all the portals, right? So only 8 of the 9 portals cannot use KB articles through their portal source. So that's a big problem. And then going beyond just surfacing issues for you, Echelon's now going to tell you and prioritize and help you roadmap what are the key things that you actually need to focus on based on knowledge management best practices from an ITIL framework perspective, as well as from a ServiceNow technical best practice framework, right? So article lifecycle and quality, right? Why does this matter? Our impact to change management. How easy are our knowledge articles to find, right? And if I click into the impact to details over here, right, you'll see the remediation suggestion that Echelon is telling us to take, right? In this case, it's telling us to configure the KB search sources so that users navigating on other portals on my instance can leverage the search engine more effectively, right? Maybe there's actually a user criteria that I actually need to set to make things a little bit, that I actually passed on. Okay. Yeah, so first example, I showed you guys how we were building out that catalog item. And over here, we're showing you how Echelon can actually improve your business processes, right? Because it's able to surface all of this information. It has knowledge for what it means to have a good, healthy process running on your instance. And this is something that this customer was able to take back to their ITSM team to say like, hey, we've been running knowledge management. We've been helping you support the knowledge, the service management platform. But this is what we found within your process gaps. And these are ways that we can improve this particular process. And this is just one example of knowledge management. We have this for HRSD. We got this for ITSM. We got this for CSM. A lot of customers who have been using the platform for many, many years, they kind of don't know where they are, right? What is the healthiness of my application? How happy are my users using CSM, HRSD? We're able to see how Echelon's able to help you crank this report out within 15 minutes time. I'll show you one more thing before we go back to the catalog item, which I think is just about finished now. CMDB, right? I know CMDB is, everyone understands its importance, its criticality, and making sure that we have the right data in the right place so that we can do things like automated ticket assignment. We can do things like automated approval routing. here's one example, one of many, where Echelon is looking into a discovery log, right? So Echelon can, of course, look at all of your merge server files, all of your logging goes there, right? Here's the example Solaris discovery log for today that Echelon, that we asked Echelon to help analyze. I don't know how great your team is. I'm sure your team is like super good, but for them to analyze a file that's over 1,000 lines long probably takes them a little bit, right? We can see within 2 minutes here, right? We found this error. We have some impact to our CMDB. We need things to be cleaned up. Within 2 minutes time, Echelon was able to look at this Solaris discovery log and find out the exact issue of why we had some errors in our CMDB daily discovery logs, right? It looks like for this particular host that ServiceNow was trying to discover, it looks like we're actually missing a service or a command that's a prerequisite. We Echelon then helps us to understand why is this even important, right? So it looks like because Echelon wasn't able to, sorry, because ServiceNow wasn't able to properly discover this host, it means that we have some missing fields on our CMDB, right? We're missing the baseboard manufacturer, we're missing the OEM string, and we're missing the memory slot detail. These are things that are very important for our IT teams to react to and need information for. And so, again, more than just surfacing information, Echelon can help you remediate that problem, right? So here we have two options that Echelon is suggesting. Hey, well, that host is missing this service, so let's make sure we install that on the host machine, right? So easy activity for your ServiceNow team to say like, hey, this is not a ServiceNow issue. Let me chat with the infrastructure folks and get this issue resolved. Or, if that's not an option, we know that within ServiceNow, there's many, many different ways to achieve the same thing. It gives us an option B. Right? Again, showing that Echelon thinking like an architect, knowing that there's different ways to solve the same problem, and giving the user, which is me in this case, the uh, keeping me in the loop, right, with all the decision making that it does.
Ken, there's a question on the chat. Can
Yeah.
you run instance specific updates at scans?
Yes, absolutely. I love that question. So this was one of the first things that we did, having led ServiceNow implementation teams for a long, long time. Peer review of update sets was, something that we have to do, but something that we never had time to do. But it was always very systematic. We knew how to do it, just lacked the time. So yeah, another example of how we can just say, hey, analyze this update set. In this example, I actually, here, let me just kind of type it out so to get you guys the full experience. So analyze my update set. And within that, we can actually point to specific update sets in here, right? Because we're connected, so why not? So let's say I wanted to look at this particular update set. So literally in 2 clicks, right? Analyze update set, at mention my update set. Echelon within a couple minutes time is able to give you this architect level peer review of this person's particular work, right? So in this case, Echelon understands what this catalog item is about. It then goes into every single line item here and gives you a rating on hygiene, criticality, best practices, as well as a lens on how impactful this is to security and ACL. Looks like we found an issue over here, right? And you guys probably kind of hear me say for many times now, we want to remediate this. I know that there's a lot of third-party scanners out there. There's an out-of-the-box way instance scanner, and I've always found those to be a little bit lacking. It's rule-based. So it just kind of checks to see if you have your semicolons in place, right? It checks to see if you have logging, but it doesn't really take the time to understand what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then giving you a very prescriptive way to then fix that issue, which is what we see here, right? And so, of course, now that you have the information that was provided to you in a quick matter of minutes, right? The next step you would take is, hey, Echelon, help me fix, finding number one. And the overall outcome to this is your developers are no longer having to wait till the end of the sprint to get peer review. They're no longer, your architect is no longer the bottleneck because they have a whole bunch of update sets to review before things get pushed onto the next instance, right? We have customers who have actually automated this process where the moment their devs set the update set as complete in ServiceNow, Echelon will automatically run this for them, right? And send the report back into ServiceNow. We also have Slack and Teams integration, so it'll actually ping the developer to say like, hey, I scanned your update set that you completed earlier today. You have some findings, right? And here it is. So that way, their developers get the information that they need very quickly. They're able to make any sort of remediations that they need to, and ultimately, they're pushing better code up the stack without having to take the time of other peers or architects. Yeah, so coming back to this catalog item, right? We can see that this one, Echelon, very transparent about what it's going to be fixing. I'm going to be creating a catalog item, 11 variables, 18 question choices, 2 UI policies, 4 UI action policies. It's in an update set. In this case, it's in the global scope, but Echelon can absolutely create things in scoped apps, including like ServiceNow scoped apps, as well as scoped apps that we've created ourselves. Again, if I wanted to make any changes here, right? Maybe I don't like the way how you're, you label my choice. I can make the changes here, right? Always human in the loop. In this case, let's go ahead and approve.
There was also another question on the previous question, Ken, which was, do we create update sets based on application scope as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let's say if you were modifying like an HR service, right? An HR service that belongs within the ServiceNow out of the box scope app. Echelon will know that, right? Because it does the discovery. It'll see that, hey, like other HR services or other records that you have all sit under this scope. So therefore, if I'm modifying something, if I'm creating something that's similar, it should be within that scope. Um, it'll know that about ITSM as well, right? We know that ITSM is mostly in the global scope, so it'll be able to just automatically make that suggestion. But let's say, in the example that we're looking at right here, Echelon suggested global, but if I really wanted to move it to somewhere else, I could have just typed it in, hey, move it to this custom scope that I'm creating, and it would have just done that.
Can you only do one work at a time on Echelon?
No, yeah, great question. So you can see here on the left-hand side, I have a whole bunch of tasks that I've been running. Nothing stopping me from immediately working on something else. So maybe in this one, I'm working on simply and something that's pretty straightforward, like a catalog item. But maybe over here, I wanted to, help me understand the latest new features within Australia, so I can plan new enhancements for HRC this quarter. Yeah, I can ask and do something completely unrelated. And yeah, so this is how we've seen some of our customers 5 to 10x their productivity. It's not, being able to build a catalog item within 30 minutes is, pretty impressive to me after someone who's built thousands of them. But you pair that up with the ability to, you can build this catalog item, right? I can kind of keep this on autopilot, right? As we have been today, and do something completely different, right? Answer a question, build another catalog item, work on a new portal, something like that. You'll also notice that we have something called projects on the left-hand side here. We know that a lot of the times your work or the teams that you're doing is never developed in a vacuum, right? Maybe you're working on building out a new custom app that involves a few developers, a few BAs, and some testers. Maybe you're working on kind of a longer term health scan remediation uh, cleanup effort, right? So, we've had customers literally taken that ServiceNow health scan report and just ask Echelon to help them remediate and clean up a lot of the stuff in there. So a lot of the work is collaborative within ServiceNow, and so projects allows you to do that. You can have multiple tasks within a particular project, right? And then multiple people can work within that task. And what that means is, hey, if I build something that is, a new custom app that has a table, and then Anand is trying to also maybe has an idea to build a custom table, Echelon would be able to understand that and say like, hey, like you two are working on the same project. Ken actually just did this yesterday. Maybe you don't need to build a new, this X, right? To able to reuse and understand everything that your team's been working on within that project.
Can Echelon help with um, upgrades or dealing with skipped records post upgrades?
Yeah, I mean, we all know that upgrades is a very time-consuming effort, and there's a lot of phases within a project, a lot of people involved. You involve the testers, you got to do a lot of research. Long story short, yes. So everything from research, in this case, we see an example of us doing that right now, right? Echelon's looking at all of the product docs that's published by ServiceNow. This really helps us, and this is just beyond just reading from the product docs. It's reading, but also relating and correlating back into my instance, right? Which is something that your architects are probably taking a lot of time to do today, right? And the other way to that Echelon would be able to support you with upgrades is the creation of those ATFs. I think a lot of us, understand ATFs, automated testing framework. They understand how it works. They understand that that is the way to solve manual testing every single upgrade. But the problem with ATFs is that they take a long, long time to create, right? You need folks with a specialized skill set to do it, and it takes a long time. And if something changes in production, you now need to update that ATF. I actually have an example here. So yeah, so Echelon can create ATFs. Yeah, so I literally just said, let's build an ATF for this catalog item. Echelon ran through its design, its discover, right? It actually proposed and understands just like your favorite QA manager would. They look at that flow, they look at all of the decision branches and trees, and they say like, hey, uh, this is what I need to test out of this item, right? There's a happy path. There's a happy path that requires two approvals, and of course the rejection path, right? So it's able to think like that QA resource, and then again clarifying what is it that you actually wanted me to test, like server logic or UI. In this case, I asked for both logic, and you can see Echelon was able to create that ATF, right? So that update set is stored right here.
And another question, if the customer has a requirement where any customization on the instance needs to go through an architectural review board, how would we enforce some governance practices like this with Echelon?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, there's two ways to do that. One of which I showed you, and this is what I would call like proactive governance, right? Proactive governance means preventing the issue from happening in the first place, right? Because governance is all about making sure things are being done. So I told you about how we can load Echelon with our technical governance standards, design standards, rules, preferences that we want Echelon to follow. We have a customer and they actually have 10 developers on their team, right? And 10 developers, very talented, very talented, but it also means 10 different ways they do the same thing, right? If you gave them the exact same story, and ask them to, hey, go build it out, they're gonna do it 10 different ways. But because they're using Echelon to do it, it's funneling through a simple, a single channel that respects all of the best practices that you've loaded in, right? It goes through that design, discover phase. Uh, you're now able to ensure that every solution that gets created on your dev instance is created through a consolidated, concise, high quality way, right? You give the exact same story to Echelon 10 different times, it's gonna go through the exact same path, so it's a lot higher consistency. So that's one half of enforcing governance standards, right? And the other half are all of the scans, the curated workflows, the assessments that I had showed you earlier before, right? Those are things that maybe you're able to now clean up technical debt, right? Now that you have Echelon with you and being used by your team, and something that you can just run automatically on a weekly, monthly basis. Have Echelon. Let me see if I have another one here. Have Echelon surface findings for you, right? In this case, we did an assessment on a custom app, and yeah, Echelon found a couple of issues with there, right? And it's able to go in depth and suggest why something is debt, why, what is the severity of it, and then of course, what is the recommendation that it tells you to do. Going back to our catalog item, it's just about done, just in time. We see Echelon actually self-checking its work, right? So just like your favorite engineer, they're not going to just build something to you, mark the update set as complete, and send it over to testing. It's going to check its work. So we see Echelon actually using a browser over here to load that catalog item, load that flow, take a look at it, take screenshots of it. And then if there are any issues with it, it's going to try and self-remediate, right? Before telling me something's done. You can see over here on the right-hand side, that update set's already complete, right? It's already in the instance, but Echelon's continuing because it wants to validate that the work is good before telling us it's complete. Yes, Vadnam, yeah, I see your question about there. Yeah, when Echelon, so Echelon is going to get connected to the list of what are they called? Rules that I think ServiceNow has installed directly on the instance, right? So the little pop-up message that says like, hey, this is an out-of-the-box object, be careful to not modify, right? Or don't modify. That's something that's going to be released in the next couple of days, where Echelon will do the same thing. If someone is asking to modify a script include that maybe they shouldn't, or maybe it's out of the box, you'll see it get flagged on the screen here. Again. Yeah. So here's that update set, right? All the catalog items. I want to open up that catalog item. I'm kind of jumping the gun here because it's still validating its work. Catalog item in the right category, all of the variables, all of the UI policies. Yeah, and let's take a look. There you go. And this has, yeah, functional UI policies. This is what I think I was chatting with a customer yesterday. I think for them, if they dedicated one developer to this 8 hours a day, full time, they probably get this catalog item done within, I think they said 2 to 3 days, right? With the flow, right? I haven't showed you guys the flow yet. But we know our developers don't have 8 hours a day to focus on one task, right? We give them a bunch of stories. They're also looking at incidents. They're also answering questions from the business. Turnaround time would typically be 2 weeks, right? Assuming they had all the right requirements, right? What I hope you guys were able to take away from this webinar was, how we were able to take something from a screenshot, right? Use natural language and build a catalog item end to end in, in the time that I've been talking, probably less than 30 minutes. And in that same amount of time, I think I showed you a plethora of other sort of use cases, the assessments, enforcing governance standards, working on additional tasks, doing research, helping with upgrades, and the flow, built beautifully here from what I can see, everything annotated, right? Nothing that's wonky looking. Yeah, I hope that this is gives you some inspiration to think about how your instance can be run with something like Echelon. And yeah, I'd love to have a chance to meet with each of you guys and talk through your specific use cases and show you maybe something that's specific towards you.